Well, good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us this morning. This is our third in a series of workshops, small sessions we've had this year as part of our Growth Summit series. We've taken specific industries. We had a talk in the consumer healthcare products space. We talked about clinical resource organizations at another session, and this morning we're going to be focusing on manufacturing. So we have three great manufacturing leaders up here and a moderator that will lead it for us. This is, as I said, part of our Growth Summit series. We'll culminate into a half-day event that we're going to be having in January 13th, so mark your calendars. You'll be getting email notification and sign-up information and more details on the event. But we're going to kind of take these smaller sessions we've had, expand it into a larger half-day session. And the theme is obviously growth. I mean, I think that's what, and when we looked at the clients that Fesnac works with, the theme that all of them had to tie them together was growth. They're in some kind of growth phase, but they're all interested in making their businesses bigger and better. And that was something that we wanted to try to connect those businesses with the necessary resources to continue to do that in the marketplace. So Fesnac wanted to try to be an integral part of that, bring our community together to help our clients and friends of the firm. So look forward to hopefully seeing you in January. I have Cheryl Beth Kugler here with me this morning. She's the president of Ballantree Consulting Corporation and the founder of CEO Think Tank. She's got over 25 years of experience offering strategy, advice, business consulting, and coaching to business owners, CEOs, and senior executives for middle market companies, the kind of companies I think that we all work with in and out of every day. So I thank you, Cheryl Beth. I'll turn it over to her. She'll introduce the panel. And everyone, please, it's interactive, right? We'll have questions, and please participate. And once again, thank you, everybody, for joining us. Cheryl Beth, thank you.
Great. Let's see. How's this work? I don't want microphones. Yeah. Thank you. That's a good idea. Does that work? Good morning.
Good morning.
There we go. I know it's very cold, so any energy that we can exhibit. Thank you, Mike, very much for the great introduction, and thanks as well to Fesnac for hosting us here today. Very excited to be here this morning with such a great panel. A few years ago, I had the pleasure of doing work with Dr. Deborah Streeter. She's a professor of entrepreneurship at Cornell School of Applied Economics and Management. Dr. Streeter has interviewed literally hundreds of entrepreneurial and mid-market CEOs over her tenure at Cornell. She's got actually a wonderful database of interviews, video interviews, if you want to check it out at Cornell's website. And in the course of the conversations, she's learned quite a lot about business leadership and what it takes to be successful. But as I was speaking with her, I said, you've got all this data. And as an engineer, I love data. And I said, what have you learned? What have been your biggest takeaways, your biggest learnings? And I could actually almost hear her smiling over the phone when I was talking with her as she said, well, we talk about in business, we talk about cash being king. And with no offense to the accountants in the room, obviously cash is important, but in her research, people will trump cash every time. Hiring the right people, finding the right people, developing and motivating them, keeping them engaged and productive. That's what Dr. Streeter found and separated the winners from the losers in her research into entrepreneurship and business. And that's really why we're here today, to share with you some of the stories from 3 mid-market companies and to hear from their leaders about the talent best practices that have allowed them to be successful. So without further ado, let me have our panelists introduce themselves. Can I start with Perry?
Well, my name is Perry Walraven. Is this working?
Do we want
They should be on. They should
Yes,
be
and
on.
on?
Or you could just hand the mic around.
Yeah, I'll just hand them. Go ahead.
Okay. I'm with Performance Controls. We're a manufacturer in Montgomeryville. We make high-performance amplifiers for MRI systems. 90% of our production goes to Asia, about half to Japan, half of that to China, which is an interesting thing in of itself. We started in 2003 with 19 people. about $4 million in revenue. We're now 80 people, $25 million in revenue. So over that 10 years, our growth rate's been about 20% a year. Hard to figure. Last year, it was 40%. The year before that, 30%. So needless to say, we've needed to find some really good people. We needed to get more efficient, and we've always needed to work as a team. Hitachi is a wonderful company to work for. They own PCI. They leave us alone. I pay no management fee. I pay no dividend. And my boss says,
I was going to say Alex wants to come work for you.
and my boss says, I trust you. Don't talk to me.
Thank you. Ross.
Good morning, everybody. My name's Ross McGovern. I'm VP of Human Resources for Datacolor. Datacolor's a company that manufactures instruments and software that's used for test and measurement solutions for color. The typical customer base is the textile and apparel industry, paint and coatings, plastics, automotive, any company that's using or needs to get color right in their supply chain. We're about 420 employees globally, $70 million in sales. We've been growing quite fast the last 2-3 years. I've been with the company 3 years now. We've really seen double-digit sales growth the last couple of years. A lot of that's been driven by really expanding our sales and marketing organization globally, but also bringing in a lot of R&D talent. We've doubled the size of our R&D facility in Lawrenceville, New Jersey. Before Datacolor, I spent 10 years with GE, so my background is mainly in HR management roles on an international stage. So today, I mean, I'll give you my perspective on the talent agenda, but also keen to hear and learn from the audience here and what's working, what's not. I don't think there's any silver bullet on the talent side, so I think it's good to hear what other companies are working on and what's been successful.
Thank you.
My name is Alex James. I'm CEO of a company called Nielsen Kellerman Company, and we are also a manufacturer in Boothwyn, which is down off of 322 near 95. We make sports performance instruments, particularly for the sport of rowing, and also rowing to stand-up paddleboarding. The company has been doing that for 35 years. We have about a 95% market share in a very small niche. And we also make handheld weather and environmental instruments and environmental data loggers. And they're also characterized by being rugged and waterproof and mostly being used in outdoor applications. We are very vertically integrated, so we come up with the idea, design the product's look and feel, the messaging, build the product, ship the product, support the product, collect the money, start all over again. So our hiring covers the gamut from $10 an hour assemblers to high-level computer programmers, software programmers. You know, I'm sure in this room you're here, so it's a self-selecting group. Nobody's going to dispute the importance of people, and I regard that as one of the most important things that I do at NK is get the right people on board and make sure they're doing the stuff that's the right stuff for them.
Great. Thank you.
So for the purposes of our conversation this morning, we divided the topic of talent and talent management into 3 sections. The first is around sourcing and screening, because trying to find folks seems to be one of the biggest challenges. Then we'll talk about interviewing and hiring, onboarding and developing, and finally wrapping up with the idea of engagement and motivation. Because it doesn't really do you any good to get them and get them on board and spend all that money and then not be able to keep them. And we'll be having each of the panelists spearhead one particular area. But as Mike has already said, if there's questions as we go through, certainly welcome to keep an interactive discussion as we go through the next 40-45 minutes, and then we certainly have time for questions as well. Correct? Good. So let's start with sourcing and screening talent. One of the key challenges that most of the CEOs that I know and the leaders that I know in this space to developing a world-class organization is finding great people and having a solid pool of candidates. You know, the best organizations like the Ritz have, the Container Store have 75 to 100 applicants for every position that they're hiring for. So I'm very curious for the panel to talk a little bit about what your strategies are for sourcing and screening.
So, first of all, it's something you're doing all of the time. Just positioning and branding your company is part of that strategy, and I believe it's also part of your marketing strategy overall. So we actually work really hard we've been a Philly Top 100 employer. We bother to do that, to pursue that award, and to promote the fact that we won that award. That matters to anybody who might come work for us, and it also does matter to our customers. They care that we make good products and take good care of our people. So you always want to be thinking about how you're presenting your company as a cool and interesting place to work. If you do a good job with your culture, your employees are always recruiting for you as well, and that's pretty critical. We're very fortunate in, so I mentioned that 1/3 of our business is the sport of rowing. There's a reason that rowing is on a lot of those big corporate posters that you hang on the wall. Rowers are nuts, and they work incredibly hard at their sport. And when they finally stop doing their sport and you turn that energy into something else that they care about, they're phenomenal employees. So we have this pool to recruit from where people went to the best schools and worked really hard and you can probably find a rower graduate in everything that we need. And so one of the places we advertise is this website that every rower reads. So that's a little bit unique to us that we have that opportunity. But it's important to think about in your business, in your communications with your customers, do you have a place like that where you can communicate to your own customer base from which referrals can come? If they care about you enough to buy your product, I think it's a lot the same as, why do girls who like frilly clothes want to go work for Victoria's Secret? Well, because that's something that they care about. So your own customers are a place to recruit from. Social media is important. Social media doesn't, if you haven't been working at social media, throwing a job listing up on Facebook isn't going to do you any good because it's not going to get shared. So if you're not doing any social media, if you're not doing LinkedIn for your business, that is a reason why you need to do all of those things, because that's a huge place to source candidates. The thing that absolutely positively does not work for us is any of the big job boards. Completely useless. Never get a qualified lead. Lots and lots and lots of unqualified leads. And the other thing that I would add before I hand it over, because I know I'm supposed to keep this short. In engineering, we do have a recruiter with whom we've had a long-term relationship. He gets our funky company, and when he sends us a candidate, there's a good likelihood that they'll be a good personality fit. And he doesn't hesitate to express what he likes about somebody and what concerns him about somebody. And Cheryl Beth and I have these arm wrestling matches over competencies. I'm not huge on competencies. Obviously, I don't hire a marketing graduate for a mechanical engineering position, but it's much more important to me that somebody have the qualities that I'm looking for of curiosity and being willing to stick to it and being willing to come back after things go wrong, which they always will. So if I have a project that has incredibly specific competency needs, we'll use consultants for that.
Just add a few comments on
Absolutely, because you guys are
what
both
we're
nodding.
working on. The first thing I would say, just to add to what Alex mentioned, is just having that compelling employee value proposition is important. You've got to really have a captivating LinkedIn career page, a website, make sure you really sell your story. I think we've also been trying to get our employees more vested in the process, educating them on how to write a good LinkedIn profile, how they can help in the effort to find talent. We launched a talent referral program, and we've been trying to build off the gamification idea, contests to find people, regular communication on key jobs to try and get employees to share their profiles and network with their groups to find people. I think for the hard-to-fill positions, sometimes your employees can be the best recruiters. We've also been using quite heavily now proactive searches with LinkedIn, using in-mails to really go out and target the right talent. I think if you just post a job, you're getting the active job seekers versus really targeting the best people who might not be looking. And I think we try and work less with recruiters than what we used to in the past, but when we do, it's typically for the more difficult to fill positions. And I believe when you do that, it's important to find the right partners that get to know the company and you build a long-term relationship with. So,
Thank you.
just a few thoughts.
It's simple. It's hard work. We have troubles finding engineers, qualified engineers who can help right away. We need help right away. We also have difficulties finding production people who do things like mechanical assembly or soldering circuit boards. The pools available in both of those groups lead you to people like me. I don't want to say over the hill, but I am old. The rest of us are old. We need to replace those people. And that's difficult. Our best source is our own employees who know somebody who knows somebody. And we've been calling people who we knew many years ago. When we talk to them, they understand what we do and why they want to work for us. And PCI has a really good story. We pay well. And we have a bonus program that usually pays out about 50% of our gross profits. I heard Mr. Wolf say he did 20 to 30. I don't know what's wrong with him. That's not enough in my book. But we do have a good story to tell. We have international travel. We have just a good environment. It is an engineering technical environment. Most of us are engineers or technical people, and it's important that I find people that fit into that kind of organization.
Great. So while you have the mic, you can keep it, because we'll move on. Can you all hear me without it? Great. So, you know, the research tells us the data actually that came out of General Electric, to go back to one of Ross's alma maters, is that only about 25% of hires are actually successful. So Perry, what are you all doing to up the odds? Once you find these people and brought them on board, how are you onboarding them? What are you doing to make sure that your initial process keeps them?
Well, it's clear to me that people that only have 25% success rates are hiring the wrong people. They didn't define what they wanted from those people. They didn't think about the talent that they were looking for. And they probably didn't think about the fit within the organization and the kind of things that you have to do to determine that a person does fit in the organization. So those are three things that I think are terribly important. Finding the talent, teasing that talent out of people, getting some knowledge of what the education and experience is needed with the right person there. And then the hardest one of all is to find somebody that actually fits in your business. A really talented person that doesn't fit will do a good job for 6 months and leave. You don't want that to happen. And it costs a lot of money to bring a person on board, a lot of money.
Yeah.
So we also do assessments.
I was going to ask, yeah.
And the assessments, I used to do the assessment after we picked the person we want to hire. Now I do an assessment when we look at our best 3 or 4 candidates on all of them.
And which ones are you doing?
We use Caliper. It's a very simple thing. One thing I like about Caliper is you can take it into Chinese language if you want to do that. And we do have some Chinese employees. But that talks to you about the attributes of a person that if you've done your homework, you know exactly what attributes you're looking for. And you can look at this assessment, you know, if you want somebody who's works on their own, there's this thing called internal structure. Caliper can measure internal structure. It can measure that somebody is self-sufficient. It can measure whether or not that person's creative. And what you can also get from the counselors, I guess I'll call them, are basically their opinions and the things that they see that might be development opportunities. So then you can call a person people back in, and you can dig a lot deeper into the issues that you find. And sometimes your number one candidate isn't your number one candidate.
Great. Ross, can you talk a little bit about your onboarding process? Because I know that you've been spending some time on that one over the last few years.
Sure. And just to add to that, I mean, I think the assessment component, there's a number of good tools out there. One I'd highly recommend for sales recruitment is it's called Craft Personality Questionnaire. It was introduced to us by a company called Asher, Measure Sales Aptitude, and we found that highly effective in recruiting people, but also developing people. And there seems to be a strong correlation between, people scoring well and performance. Using that the last couple of years.
For sales, in the sales arena.
On the sales side,
right.
Absolutely. So, I mean, for me, a few things that we've learned is you need some good structure around the onboarding process. I mean, if you get the hiring side of it right, we found we really need to educate and provide the right tools to our managers. So we do some simple things. I mean, we typically have a very structured 90-day onboarding plan where they meet all the key stakeholders. We build training into that they need, product training and other introductory training on how we work. We also try and, when we evaluate candidates, assess them not just on the technical requirements, but against our core values and leadership. And typically try and hire people who, I would say, are even overqualified or able to grow with the company, not just able to do the job today, so hire with potential in mind. And we've developed an online onboarding portal with a number of tools for managers, things like simple checklists, but also a lot of material on the company. We're posting videos there just to educate around their strategy or corporate values, things like that. The reason we've gone online with some of this is we have people in about 25 different countries, a lot of small offices, so you don't always have HR people, you don't always have the strongest managers, so we're trying to get a level of consistency and standardization as far as possible. And we're now building in that we're going to be rolling out a learning management system which will give us the ability to then track, set up a very clear onboarding training plan, track the effectiveness of that, and also survey against it. So I think there's no magic formula, but I think the more structure you can put in place, assuming you get the hiring right, it increases your chance for success.
Right, exactly. Alex, do you have any other commentary on interviewing or onboarding and coaching?
If you're only succeeding 25% of the time, you're definitely not doing something right. I would say we probably fail, not even fail. I would say we have results that are not quite what we hoped about 25% of the time. We spend an extraordinary amount of time at the hiring process. We have tried to use a lot of different assessments.
Playing with predictive index now.
None of them have yet told me anything that we weren't clear on already by the time we've been to lunch and been to dinner and thrown these people in with 5 to 7 of their coworkers from all different departments. So we spend a lot of time, people really, it's not Google level, but they spend a lot of time with the company. They're pretty clear on what they're getting into by the time they decide to come on board. Onboarding is something that I would say that we are not yet doing a consistent enough job with. We have some things that we do completely consistently. Every single person who comes on board on the exempt professional side spends 3 days working in production on the production line. And there is no negotiating on that. And they all learn an extraordinary amount. We are a very lean manufacturer. We're a flow manufacturer. It's very, very visual, tons and tons of metrics. They learn so much about what makes our products rugged and tough and reliable and accurate that it just totally changes their attitude. We do also have articulated strategy that's posted and visible, and people understand that. That's kind of the professional side of the house. On the assembler side of the house, I actually have no trouble hiring assemblers, and we never have.
You guys gotta get together.
Yeah.
And we pay a lot more than $10.
Exactly. So, but I have a 100% skills-based pay system. So there's about 40 job skills. Some of them are very hard skills, like soldering printed circuit boards, and some of them are soft skills, like being able to articulate the 8 ways of lean, understanding what 6S is, understanding how to read our visual board. They get paid for that. You can come on board at 10 and be at 12 inside of a year if you try at all. And it's very clear to people that they have that opportunity. And it makes people want to learn new things, and it makes people want to move around. People will filter themselves out in the 90-day new hire period. It does not work for everybody. And so, holding the standards high and exposing people to what they're going to do during that 90-day period is pretty critical, because when I say 25% not successful, that's after that 90-day period on the floor, because I couldn't do it. So we give people an opportunity to really see what the work is like. And that happens actually in the interview process. They actually come in and solder and do some basic assembly as part of that process. We typically hire people with 0 experience, so we want them to learn what they're going to do.
Did you have an additional one you wanted to add on that? You were nodding, so I wasn't sure.
Well, we also do testing of the mechanical and soldering people. But one of the things we do, especially for engineers, is put them through a pretty interesting process. They call it interesting. We do a panel interview, and mostly it's engineers doing the engineering, so they can see right through, I'll call it BS. We also ask our top candidates to give us a presentation on a project that they've worked on that they're proud of. I love war stories. I want people to come in and tell me a war story. There I was, 50,000 feet, all that stuff, and obviously a business setting, where they made a difference. And if they can put down on that piece of paper and do a presentation that meets our requirements. We learned, for example, that they have listening skills. We learned that they're serious enough about the job to want to put the energy into it. And we learned that they can work with people and not get cold feet about that process.
Great, thanks. Ross, can you talk a little bit about your development process? I mean, you've obviously done tremendous amount of work in training and development. How are you taking these folks that you're getting and bringing them along and working with the current people as well?
So when I joined the company 3 years ago, asked what the training budget was, and they could give me that number. So one of the reasons I was brought in was really to try and modernize the HR function. And part of that was building a strategy which required investment, structure, training and development. You're never going to be a growth company unless you've got structure around your people development. So there's a few things we've been doing on the management side. I don't really believe a one-off training course moves the needle. I like the experiential learning model, which combines, I would say, on-the-job projects, classroom learning, and assessment tools, and to try and deploy that in a structured way over a period of time. So what we did was we identified our top-level managers, and we put them through a 6-month development program called Leading Success, where they get executive coaching, they do a 360. There's other assessment components as well as projects and on-the-job experiences with support from the manager. We found that model is, I think, much more engaging for the people. They really see a sustained investment, and I think it's a much more productive way to develop your management level. I would say in terms of other training and development, I mean, we're trying to do a lot more online training, which is more cost effective to roll out and deploy, I would say, the basic training to people, information in the company or processes and procedures. On the sales side, we found an excellent partner, a company called Asher, and they basically took the best sales training methodologies from Miller Hyman and everything that's out there. The thing I liked about this, it's a very practical list of top 10 selling skills. We do a 2-day workshop. All the people do an assessment as well. And we've now developed a very, I would say, good common language in the organisation where all new hires go through that workshop, and we're now working on some other strategic training and sales side. And it really, sometimes it's difficult to link training and development to the bottom line, but I can tell you 3 years ago we were not growing and just hiring stronger people and investing heavily in training. We're now growing at 15% a year, and you ask our sales managers and they would tell me that training has really helped to drive performance. So those are a
And
few
you have
things.
a training budget now.
We now have a budget, probably not enough, but I think as you get some success and people see the impact, then you've got a stronger business case.
Right, exactly.
I'm not afraid to, I'm always looking for a better way to do things, and I'm also not afraid to do things that are a little bit different than currently defined best practices. So one of the things I've absolutely loathed for the past however long I've run the company is performance reviews. And we tried a different system for doing performance reviews, which I equally loathed. And we've completely abandoned them, and we use a tool called 15-5, which is an online tool. The concept of 15-5 is that employees spend 15 minutes answering 5 questions, which the manager should be able to read their answers in 5 minutes. 15-5 is, they recommend weekly. For us, weekly was a little ridiculous. We do it monthly. It is incredibly revealing and helpful. It's what are your wins, because God knows in an annual performance review you cannot remember your wins from 12 months ago. So we're documenting good stuff that people did. I love it when we're writing notes on each other. We're documenting good stuff that people did in the last month. What are your barriers? Because in my view, the #1 job of a manager is to remove barriers so that their employees can do their frickin' job. And how's the morale of people around you? I have found that question to be incredibly revealing. Obviously, the 15-5 folks figured out that if you ask people directly what their morale is, they will not tell you. If you ask people what other people's morale is, they will tell you, but what they're telling you is what their morale is. So that one's been really super useful. What are some things you want to learn? Because I want to know what they want to learn, so they're taking charge of areas where they want to develop. And what's one great idea you have for improving something in the company? Those 5 questions, pretty much, if you pay attention, cover the gamut of employee development. Super, super useful. It is a software as a service system. It's $5 a head a month. Totally worth it. And very user-friendly. It is the first thing like that I've rolled out that instantly I got 100% compliance, and a lot of people emailing me saying, why haven't we been doing this forever? This is awesome. So that's a huge one. I will also throw out that if money for training is an issue, Pennsylvania has a training program that is a giant pain in the butt to use. But if you figure it out, there's WEDNET funding unspent every single year. We just got 30 grand to spend on training. I mean, you have to spend it on Pennsylvania employees. So those of us who are in the tri-state area, obviously we have employees probably from New Jersey and Delaware and Maryland. So you have to spend it on your Pennsylvania employees. But if you're smart and you do group stuff, you can still make it work. So, doing some formal training, totally agree with Roz. We've done generalized training, and certainly in the lean world, there's a lot of generalized training you can do that's been much less successful than doing events right at NK. And the other thing that is a huge learning tool and development tool of NKA is, it's also part of Lean, it's the Japanese concept of end-on-light systems, where something is going wrong, any employee who observes that in some way what you're doing is not going to meet the needs of the customer, be it quality of the product, performance of the product, or delivery of the product, they stop the process. They call an end-on-light, and a whole team of people, anybody who's relevant to solving that problem, comes and participates in the problem solving. If you run those well and structured, you teach problem solving skills, you teach root cause analysis, you teach plan, do, check, act, and people don't even know that they're learning it. You just are modeling it, and as a result of that process, they're learning an enormous set of skills that solves. And we do it in accounting, we do it in marketing, we do it in manufacturing, and we do it in engineering. So.
Thank you.
Let me make sure that we have time for questions, because I know we're managing, right? So we're doing okay here. What questions do folks have from the audience? I mean, I have a few more questions on my sheet, but I'd like to clarify questions. Lisa?
So in the accounting industry, we've had, especially led by the Big Four, people going into the high schools these days to try and develop pipeline. Do you see kind of in the business arena that it's a responsibility or opportunity for the businesses to, you know, kind of reach into the education system and seed the pipeline, as it were?
Because I know you're doing this.
No, it's a great question. I think we could definitely do more. What I see is people coming that are not always prepared for the workplace. So I think more engagement from our side can help with that. I mean, we've spent quite a bit of time the last year or two on building relationships with local universities to develop our internship program. And there was a lot of skepticism of management initially that it's going to require a lot of time investment and we might not get the end result, but we really built that and ended up hiring a number of these talents. And it really surprised us when you bring these people, they're bright, they're hungry, they're keen to learn, and put some structure around it. That's something that I think we've all faced the hiring challenges. You've got to grow your own people well to keep up with the growth demands. So we've not really engaged yet, I would say, at the level below. But I think it's really up to companies to do more of that, because I think we all get frustrated when we don't find the talent that we need. I think we can better articulate what skills we need, work with the universities and education system to really help them tailor their programs to meet the business world's needs.
And you specifically are working with Rutgers and Princeton.
Yeah.
Are you working with universities as well, or not? You haven't reached out yet?
Well, actually, we work with the MEA, the Employer Association, which has programs related to that. Also say if you're looking for a good training resource, I think MEA can
Mid-Atlantic,
help you
yeah.
do that.
Mid-Atlantic Employers
And
Association.
employment law is not the easiest thing to navigate. If you don't have good advice or an HR person on staff, I can almost guarantee that an audit by the Department of Labor will find something that you need to take care of. And no matter what your business is, your first priority when they show up.
Yeah. Other questions from the audience? I think, yes. Sir.
So, a little bit of setup. My background's in developing computer software companies. So we did about 8 startups over a 30-year period. The company I have now is focused on producing biomedical implants. So we produce extremely precise parts for the spine, for spine surgeons primarily, using CNC machines. But they're not your average CNC machines. They're 5-axis CNC machines primarily, which are very sophisticated robots. Need to be programmed by somebody who has both a very good understanding of spatial orientation, but also understands relatively high-level programming languages. The question I have is, I'm used to seeing extremely self-motivated, highly motivated individuals who are in it for the experience. They're extremely excited about what they do. that's in the software and programming world. This world is bifurcated in two populations. Management, who understands the overall game, and then you have hourly employees who are very well trained and very sophisticated in what they're doing. They don't, it's very difficult to describe. They don't seem to have that joie de vivre, the interest in creating something. They're there for their pay, and that's pretty much it. And so the question that I have is motivation for hourly employees, even highly paid hourly employees. Has anybody had any experience with that and had any problems with that?
Sure.
Take that one. We've got plenty of experience. This table, I suspect.
So we certainly have some of the same experience. We even, there's a physical wall between production and where all the manufacturing, or where all the engineering and technical and sales and marketing staff are. Which I wish we didn't have that physical wall, but manufacturing is a little bit louder and they like to play really obnoxious music while they're working. And I am sometimes shocked at call it the pettiness of some of their concerns. But I work really hard to connect them to our end user stories. And fortunately, we have some great ones, and some of them actually come from inside of our walls. So one thing that was kind of cool this year, one of our engineers made the national team and was the national team single sculler and went to Amsterdam and raced in the United States colors. So that, when they understand that the product that they're making is used by somebody like that, and they can actually see that happen, that's really helpful. And some of the stories, we had two Kestrels go to the South Pole last year, the South Pole expeditions. So that's not actually really representative of the entire Kestrel market, but it was a great story. We followed their progress for 3 months. So stuff like that does help connect them with why our specs are important and why our level of quality is important. And come back again, the Andon Light system for us constantly reinforces, I go out to the floor and I am articulating why we're doing what we're doing over and over and over again. And you can't say it too much.
Yeah, can you talk about your communication meetings, and then I know Perry probably has a couple comments on this one.
So we do a monthly all-hands meeting. Quarterly, I actually share our financial performance pretty transparently with all of our employees. So they really do understand how the company is doing, good or bad. It's pretty open door. I mean, nobody is afraid of me in the slightest. And they all feel like they can ask me anything that they want to. So in doing the Philly 100, you get a third-party survey by Workplace Dynamics. And what's funny is actually this year, when I feel like people are the happiest that they've ever been, and we've done the best job addressing all the things that make them mad, the end result of that is nobody wants to fill out the damn survey. But we learned a lot through that process. We really did learn an enormous amount.
And we were one of the Philly 100 this year, so I really understand the process.
Right. Perry, because again, you're very big on communication. I know you do your dailies and.
Yeah, we have a daily stand-up. We have a management meeting every week. We have an employee meeting quarterly. But I make sure that I talk to every employee about how we're doing. When they're worried, I tell them to let me worry for them. That's my job. You just work. And then, sometimes they get worried. Motivated people. I come from a school that says you don't motivate people. You hire motivated people and then you work real hard to make sure they stay that way. You also have to give your employees something to dream about and strive for. PCI is very fortunate in that what we do is related to medical business, and medical business is directly related to saving lives. People go for that. We've also done some radar systems for the FAA. I don't know if you know it or not, but between 1975 and 1990, over 800 people died in crashes at airports on approach. The FAA built a radar system. It's called Terminal Doppler Weather Radar, if it means anything. It's designed to help pilots land in a thunderstorm environment. We supply the motion systems and the motor systems to make that radar work. They work 24/7. Uptime is important. Since those radars installed, not one single person has died at an airport where those machines were installed. Those are the kind of stories that people want to work in a company in a meaningful job. And you know, I'm most proud of it. I get emotional about it actually. That our highest rating on the last survey was, I am proud to work for my company. And I tell everybody I meet, we're a great place in this. And to me, if you ask me what we did specifically to do that, you know, I try to create an environment where teamwork is important. And I want people to stay. I don't want people to come to my place and say, I'm going to work here for a couple of years and then I'm moving on. So I do everything I can to make that happen. And a production employee, this really blew me away. We onboarded a production employee. She worked 3 weeks. She bought lunch. And she's one of the lower paid people. She bought lunch for the entire company because she appreciated the way she was treated as a newcomer. Now, how do you make that happen? I think it's unconscious competence, maybe. But, you know, I value each and every one of those employees.
Ross,
I agree with what Perry said, that you've got to hire people with the right motivation. It doesn't matter what you do if you don't hire that. That said, I think there's things you can do to get most out of your workforce. I think connecting people with the greater purpose, so when you're communicating, it's beyond just financial information, it's things they can really connect with. So we do some of the same things in terms of quarterly and monthly updates and sharing examples of how we're helping customers solve their problems. The other thing we did that was quite effective, we tied a recognition program to our corporate values, and we share examples of employees and recognize them and communicate this of when they're living our core values, helping customers and so on and so forth. And it's a peer recognition scheme, so it's not just management highlighting examples, it's employees recognizing each other, and that's helped us build, I think, great culture. And the last thing I think is, again, team-based rewards and trying to link incentives to drive that motivation and culture of bringing new ideas. I think that's especially important for a small growth company.
Yep, exactly. Do we have time for one last question?
Yeah, a couple more questions. We started late, so as long as everybody can
Okay.
stay.
Additional clarifying question, yeah, Mike?
It's one to talk to with a couple of panelists, but here's so much in the news lately about the millennials and how difficult it is to integrate them into the new workforce. But I wondered if you could talk, the panelists could share their experience with dealing with that millennial workforce and integration.
So I always feel like that person is writing about some other kids that live in some other part of the world, because that's not my experience at all. I mean, I adore my kids in their 20s. They come on board, they are so fired up, they've got so many ideas, all of them are willing to work up the ladder as long as they're doing something that matters. I don't know. They do want you to tell them they're doing a good job. That is the single most important thing. But not in a smarmy pat on the head, no matter what way. It's just pay attention and tell them that what they're doing matters, and always connect the dots between what they're doing and the company goals. And I don't know. They can't write, but I'm an English major, so that's a different problem. Everything else about them is great.
I mean, one of the things sometimes we need to work on with them is the problem-solving skills. One of the plus points, I think, is creativity. They look at the world a bit differently, so we hired a lot of fantastic interns in marketing. They know social media, they know how to operate in the new world, so that's the plus point, but in writing skills, basic problem solving. So we've been doing some training and rolling out certain tools to build a methodology around those things. I would say the current group are more motivated than what I saw before the crisis. I think just going through that downturn, there's less of an entitlement mindset than what I saw before. So people seem a bit hungrier, more drive than maybe 5-7 years ago. So
I don't believe in the concept.
Of the millennials in general? Just treat them like human beings, right?
There is actually an interesting Price Waterhouse, the chair of Price Waterhouse actually had an HBR article about millennials, and some of the stuff that these folks have talked about massive transformational purposes. They do need to believe that what they're doing matters. And I think it's because they grew up in a climate of providing service, right? You can't get out of school today without having some type of service or charity or that type of thing, so that's sort of part of their lives. And so if you're not doing something that's important in some way, they are like, well, why are you here? There is that type of attitude.
They also saw the traditional story of if you do things in this order, you will be rewarded and you will be financially secure, not necessarily work out for people in their immediate family and friends. So I think they're a little bit more carpe diem than what I'm doing now to matter. But I think they're just generally.
We actually have a community action committee that I stay out of, that basically we fund them yearly, and they work with the local community to provide money and service. And a lot of employees really appreciate that.
Yeah, you do this, I know you do the same thing. I'm not sure if you guys are.
No, it's one of the site committee doing these things.
Yeah, there you go. Great.
Well, I think we're pretty much.
I was just going to say, obviously what we've talked about this morning is one small ingredient, but do you want to talk a second about the scaling up?
Yeah, absolutely. So first of all, I wanted to say thank you very much to Alex and Ross and Harry for donating their time this morning and coming out. I really appreciate the opportunity to know each of you and work with you, and so thank you very much. And also, I wanted to bring copies of Vern Harnish's new Scaling Up book. For those of you that know me, Mastering Rockefeller Habits, which was written the end of the 90s into 2000, I guess, has been out. Yes, one of my alums. For quite some time, and Vern finally, after about 2 or 3 years, has managed to do Rockefeller Habits 2.0. It's a really very, very cool book. I've heard lots of good things about it. It's only been out for about a month, so if you'd like to pick up a copy on your way out, and if we run out, I can certainly get some more. But I truly believe that there is a better way to run a small mid-market company, and Vern, in my opinion, has the thought leadership and the tools to do that. So, thanks.
Great. Just going to ask for a round of applause for Perry, Ross, Alex, and Cheryl Beth. Thank you very much. I think based on audience questions and engagement, that was a very enlightening conversation. Hopefully people took away some great pointers to bring back to their businesses and their clients throughout the week. So thank you very much. Once again, reminder, January 13th, we'll have the half-day summit, so keep an eye out for that. And thank you very much for the panelists this morning. We appreciate the conversation. And as Cheryl Beth mentioned, her book is up there, so please stop by if you're interested in a copy. Thank you. Have a great rest of the day, everyone.